Hey there, Drowsy Historian here. Tonight, you're not an emperor, not a noble, and certainly not anyone the gods are listening to. You're a llama herder, born to altitude, burden, and silence. You walk the empire's roads, not as a pilgrim or a priest, but as a shadow behind wool and dung and state-mandated obligation. Your name won't be carved into stone or knotted into a quipu. You'll leave no descendants of note, but you'll walk, for years, for miles, for reasons no one bothers explaining. And when the mountain finally takes you, it will take you without fuss. Before the wind rises and the sun burns through another layer of your skin, do me a small favour. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is there. There's something strangely soothing about hearing who's tuning into the show from around the world. If you'd like early access to more of these grim bedtime stories, ad-free audio of the episodes, or just want to support the show, you'll find the Patreon link in the description. But for now, lie back, get comfortable. Let's begin. You were born high in the mountains where the wind never stops and the sun feels more like a trick than a comfort. It bakes you by day and abandons you by night. The skies are thin, flickering blue. Beautiful, in the same way a knife's edge is beautiful. Your mother squats in the dust outside a stone hut and pushes you into the world with no midwife and no audience. She has other things to do. A weaving, half finished. A cousin's illness to ignore. A fire to tend. She does not scream. There is no drama. You arrive quietly, as you will live. The hamlet isn't even named. If it ever had one, the name was forgotten long before you were born, and the quipu that held it rotted somewhere in a storage house near Cusco. It clings to a steep hillside, a handful of stone dwellings, half swallowed by mist and moss. When people speak of the Inca Empire, they speak of temples, of golden sun disks and roadways that never end. They speak of Cusco, the navel of the world. No one speaks of this place. It's too far from anything that matters. Except, of course, when the census takers come, then it matters just enough to be counted, taxed, and sent marching. Your Ailu, the village collective, is made of cousins you don't like and elders you don't trust. You're all tied together, not by affection, but by obligation. If one family fails to meet their Mita, the labour tax, the whole village suffers. So everyone watches each other, closely. You learn early that your worth is not in who you are, but what you contribute. You are not sacred, you are useful, and even that is conditional. Your father is not a priest or warrior or builder. He is a herder, not of sheep, they don't exist here, but of llamas, the tall spitting engines of Imperial logistics. He walks more than he speaks. His face is cracked from years of thin air and thick silence. He smells like dung and old wool. You love him and pity him in equal measure. He's proud in a quiet, unspoken way that his feet have worn us smooth the paths that hold the empire together. When he speaks of his service, it's always with the same 3 words. I walked far. That is both boast and warning. Your mother, when she isn't coughing up phlegm or tending to someone else's child, weaves. She makes textiles not for beauty, but for quotas. Each square of cloth has a purpose: to clothe, to pay, to offer. She tells you that fabric is more valuable than food. You believe her because you have never seen enough of either. Your blankets itch. Your tunic never fits. When it rains, and it always rains, it clings to you like a second, colder skin. But at least it hides the bruises from slipping on the rocks or from being pulled too hard when you stray from the herd. As a baby, you sleep beside the llamas, not by choice, but by necessity. Their warmth is more reliable than fire, and your family doesn't waste kindling on someone who doesn't speak yet. The animals breathe loudly in the dark, their bodies rising and falling with the rhythm of wind and hunger. You don't find it strange, it's just the way things are. The llamas are your lullaby, their stench is your blanket. You don't cry at night, because no one would come anyway. When you learn to walk, your feet bleed for days. No one gives you sandals. You walk barefoot on paths cut by centuries of footsteps, chipped by time and weather. The altitude makes your head swim. You're not even 2, but you already know what it means to wheeze. The elders say, this is good. It means your lungs are growing strong, your blood thick with purpose. You don't feel strong. You feel dizzy, but you nod anyway. You've learned early that disagreeing only makes things worse. Language comes later. And even then it's mostly commands. Come here, stay close, carry this, don't fall. You pick up Quechua the way you pick up everything else, through repetition and reprimand. No one tells you stories, no one teaches you songs. Childhood is not a category anyone recognizes out loud. You're small, therefore you carry less. That's the only distinction. Your elders expect obedience, and your peers expect nothing at all. By the time you're old enough to hold a stick, you're given one. Not to play with. Play is for people who live near Cusco, where food is steady and festivals happen often enough to pretend they matter. No, your stick is to guide the herd. Not by striking, though you do that too, but by tapping stones and making noise to keep the llamas moving. You are told to never let them wander. If a llama dies, the loss is yours. If you die, someone else will take the stick. The llamas are everything. They carry the empire on their backs. Salt, grain, cloth, coca, dried fish, the bones of kings. Without them, the roads would crumble and the temples would go hungry. Without them, the Mita labourers wouldn't be fed. The priests wouldn't be clothed. The nobles wouldn't be warm. You are not a herder. You are a link in a system too big to see, too uncaring to acknowledge you. The llamas are holy in a way you are not. You're herding before your adult teeth come in. They're still loose in your gums when you're given your first true responsibility. Take the smaller group up the slope and bring them back down before the sun dips behind the ridge. That's all. No ceremony, no instruction. Just a grunt from your father and a sharp gesture toward the path. The llamas already know the route better than you. You suspect they're testing you. The air at this altitude is not your friend. It's thin, dry and sharp enough to slice the inside of your nose when you breathe too hard. Your breath comes in ragged pulls and your chest never quite fills. You walk anyway, because that's what the others do. Your sandals are made from old woven scraps and they fall apart within a week. After that, you go barefoot, your soles turning black and cracking like river stones left too long in the sun. You bleed sometimes. It doesn't stop you. If anything, it hardens the skin. Eventually, you stop noticing. The tunic they gave you is too large in the wrong places and too small where it matters. It scratches at your collarbone and rides up when you crouch to check the animal's feet. It never stays clean. The scent of llama piss clings to the wool like a curse, mixing with the ever-present dust and the sharp stink of your own sweat. Bathing is rare. You wash in streams when you pass them, but the water bites and the wind dries you before you're clean. The llamas themselves are not gentle creatures. They spit when annoyed, stamp when restless, and wander constantly. You learn quickly that calling out does nothing. They don't listen to noise. They listen to movement. So you walk in a wide arc, waving your stick low and slow like a wind that means business. If you're lucky, they obey. If you're not, one will bolt up a slope and you'll have to follow, knees screaming, lungs burning, heart pounding against your ribs, like a fist against a locked door. You live among them now, more animal than child. They sleep beside you, breathe beside you, and relieve themselves whenever and wherever they like. You shovel dung into piles and try to keep the trail clear, but there's always more. The smell follows you. It gets into your hair, your ears, the lines of your palms. After a while, you stop smelling it. You only notice when someone else does, like the young priest who wrinkles his nose when you pass the Tampoo. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't have to. You rarely see your family anymore. They stay in the village, trading corn for potatoes, whispering gossip about nearby Ellis, and arguing over who owes what to whom. You don't miss them. Not really. You spend more time with the herd than with people. They're quieter, more predictable. They don't demand conversation. They don't ask if you're tired. They don't expect you to be anything other than what you are, a shadow with calloused feet and a crooked stick. Meals are practical, not pleasurable. You chew on chunyo, freeze-dried potatoes that taste like chalk and misery. Sometimes you get dried meat, hard as stone and just as forgiving. If you're lucky, you find a handful of coca leaves tucked into a pouch. You chew them slowly, letting the bitterness numb your tongue and blur the edges of your fatigue. It doesn't give you strength exactly, just quiet, just the space between exhaustion and collapse. You don't sleep in beds, you don't sleep in houses. You find flat ground, wedge yourself between warm bodies and curl into the dirt like a root-seeking purchase. The stars above are cold and uncaring. The wind is always moving, always testing. You learn to sleep with your eyes half open and your ears tuned to the shuffle of feet and the whistle of predators. You never hear the puma coming, not until it's already dragging one of the herd into the trees. You report the loss in the morning. Your father doesn't speak. He just stares, then walks away. You aren't sure if he's disappointed in you or just used to the dying. Every few days, you check the animals for wounds. Stones lodged in pads, rope burns from tied legs, swelling around the joints. You don't treat them. That's someone else's job. Farther down the line, your task is to notice, to remember, and to pass the message along. You keep track by counting them in your head, matching faces to markings, tones of wool, shapes of ears. You dream in llama faces now, half-lidded eyes and crooked teeth floating behind your eyelids. You are taught, bluntly and often, that a lost animal is a disgrace. The Empire doesn't forgive lost cargo. The roads are long and the margins are thin. If a bundle of cloth or sack of dried fish fails to reach its destination, someone starves. Someone doesn't get paid, someone gets punished. And it won't be the man in the temple with clean hands and golden earrings. It'll be you, or someone like you. And punishment, out here, often just means being left behind. Sometimes when you pause to catch your breath, you imagine what it must be like to be born in Cusco. Not that you've seen it, but you've heard the stories. Stone walls fitted so tightly, a knife blade can't slip between them. Streets paved smooth, women who don't walk with cracked feet. You picture nobles in fine tunics, eating hot maize and sipping chicha from clean bowls. You don't envy them exactly. You just wonder if they've ever stepped in dung and felt it squelch between their toes. Probably not. You've never been asked what you want to become. That question doesn't exist here. You are what your father was. He was what his father was. There is no ladder to climb, no upward path. The Empire does not reward dreams. It rewards consistency. You wake, you walk, you return. If you do that enough times without losing a llama or dying, you are considered good. Not honoured, not special, just good. Some days you climb so high the clouds sit below you, a sea of white broken by jagged peaks like stone teeth. The view is stunning. People would paint it if there were painters here, but you don't stop to admire it. You don't have time. A pause means the herd spreads out, and herding them again takes twice the effort. You keep moving. The beauty is just another obstacle. It mocks you with its indifference. You speak to the llamas more than to other people, not because you think they understand, but because it makes the silence feel less heavy. You hum to them sometimes, soft, tuneless things carried by wind and repetition. You've forgotten most words to any songs you may have learned. They weren't meant for you anyway. The priests chant in the temples, the nobles sing during festivals. You are not part of the melody. You are the rhythm beneath it, unnoticed but essential. The seasons don't matter as much as the terrain. There is no real spring here, no clear autumn, just a constant shifting between dry and wet, warm and cold, storm and stillness. You've learned to read the sky by colour, the wind by taste. You know when snow will fall before it does. You know which rocks will loosen underfoot. You know how to judge the slope by how the llamas hesitate. Eventually, you're given your own route, your own assigned run, with your own set of animals and a rough timetable carved into your memory. You're no longer supervised. That doesn't mean you're trusted. It just means there aren't enough people to waste on watching you anymore. You are old enough now, old enough to leave and return weeks later, as if your absence were a blink. No one asks what you saw. No one asks what you felt. They only ask if you lost anything. You're proud in a way, not loudly, not with words, but in the way your father was, in the quiet knowledge that your feet have walked paths others couldn't survive, in the way the animals settle when you whistle low, in the way the cargo is packed straight and arrives dry. You are a function, a line in a larger system, and you perform it well. But somewhere, under the routine, you begin to realize something else. You are not free. The llamas may follow you, but you are just as tethered. You walk where they walk, sleep where they sleep, eat only when they stop moving. They are your life, but they are also your prison. You don't remember when you stopped choosing, or if you ever did. Your journeys always start the same. You leave your village without a goodbye. No one gathers to see you off. No one offers a blessing or a token or a word of encouragement. They've all walked this road before, or they've sent someone who has. Leaving is expected, returning is optional. You step out before sunrise, when the air is still stiff with frost and the llamas grunt irritably at being disturbed. Your pack is light, but only because you've carried worse. A bundle of cloth, a pouch of dried food, a few coca leaves wrapped in old wool. Nothing sentimental. Sentiment makes poor ballast. The path out of your hamlet joins one of the great roads of the Empire within a day's walk, if your legs hold. You've walked it before with others, but never alone. Now the road stretches ahead, like a woven thread, unfurling endlessly over rock and sky. It winds around cliffs, across streams, through dry grasslands and high stone ridges where the wind screams and there's nothing to hear but its own voice. The sun rises slowly, but the warmth never reaches your bones. You walk into its light, and the shadows never leave you. The road is not dirt, it is stone, fitted, angled, ancient. Some sections are flat and forgiving. Others are steps cut straight into the mountain's flank. The incline so steep it feels more like climbing than walking. Gravel crunches underfoot. Sharp edges find the soft parts of your sandals, and soon enough, the blisters start to bloom. Your knees complain, your back threatens to seize, and your shoulders tighten from the constant tug of the lead rope in your hand. The llamas walk in single file, heads low, jaws grinding, leaving behind a trail of dung and patience. You try not to look ahead too often. It's better not to know how far the next bend is, or how many more switchbacks climb the ridge before you descend into another barren valley. You learn to focus on smaller things. The next step, the pattern of stones beneath your feet, the flick of a llama's ear as it catches the whine of a distant insect. These small anchors keep your thoughts from floating too far. There's nothing useful in imagining the end. It only makes the present harder. You pass other travellers from time to time, mostly men like you, with animals and burdens and eyes that don't linger. No one greets anyone. No one asks where you're from or where you're headed. You see soldiers in pairs, their bronze weapons gleaming even in the dull morning haze. You move aside. They don't thank you. You see chaskis, runners with strong legs and feathered tunics, flash past in a blur of colour and pride. They don't look back. You don't exist to them. You're a part of the scenery, like a tree or a boulder or the smell of dung warming in the sun. Occasionally, you pass a shrine tucked into the hillside, a stacked cairn of stones, a cracked vessel, a sun-bleached bundle of coca leaves pressed beneath a rock. You don't stop. You don't have anything to offer, and the gods already know who you are. They've seen your feet, your labour, your sacrifice. They know your place. They don't need to hear it from your mouth. Your feet begin to ache by midday, the kind of ache that seeps into the bones and makes you question whether you were ever meant to stand upright. You shift your weight from one side to the other. Try different gaits, different rhythms. Nothing helps. The pain is patient. It knows you'll run out of tricks before it runs out of time. You chew on a coca leaf. Let it dull the edge of things. Not the pain itself, but the urgency of noticing it. The altitude plays tricks on your head. You think you hear voices behind you, then realize it's just the wind funneling between rocks. You see shapes that don't belong, faces in cliff walls, animals in shadow. You blink. They're gone. You don't slow down. Pausing invites stiffness. Stiffness invites collapse. So you keep walking, head down, mouth dry, watching your own feet like they're someone else's problem. The llamas grow restless in the heat. They stop often to sniff at nothing, to consider a bush they've passed 100 times before. You don't shout. You just wait, tapping your stick lightly against stone, reminding them without words that they belong to motion now. You belong to it too. Stillness is a luxury for people with options. You are not one of them. There's no shade. The sun bears down with the weight of an angry father. Your scalp burns through your hair. The back of your neck prickles. You stop sweating for a while, which is worse than sweating. You press your tongue to the roof of your mouth and find it dry as stone. Your water gourd is half full. You don't drink. You never drink during the heat of day. You've learned that lesson. You drink in the evening, in the cool, when you can pretend it helps. You pass a rope bridge slung between two cliffs, its woven fibres swaying in the wind like the belly of some giant beast. You don't like the way the llamas hesitate. You don't like the way you hesitate, but there's no other route. The Empire built this path to go forward, not around. You tighten the strap on your pack and step onto the bridge. It creaks, but it holds. It always holds, until the day it doesn't. You tell yourself, today is not that day. By the time the sun begins to fall, the world is gold and long shadow. Your feet feel like stones wrapped in skin. Your legs twitch involuntarily, small spasms that pulse through your calves and into your hips. Every rise in the path feels like punishment. Every descent feels like surrender. The llamas are quieter now, and so are you. The herd moves with the slow grace of exhaustion, each step measured, each breath deliberate. You round a final bend and see the Tampoo at last, an Imperial rest stop, a low building of stone and thatch set beside a cold stream. Smoke rises weakly from a fire pit. A man squats by the door, chewing something. He doesn't stand when you approach. He's seen too many of you to care. You nod. He nods back. That's as much welcome as you'll get. You lead the llamas into the pen, untie their loads, check their foot pads, and rub the worst knots from the lead ropes. Your fingers are stiff, and you can't tell if they're dirty or just permanently stained. You drop your own pack by the wall and sink down beside it. The ground is uneven, but you've slept on worse. You close your eyes, you don't mean to. You just do. There's food available, a pot of something lukewarm and grey, but you don't move toward it. Your stomach doesn't care. Hunger gave up an hour ago. Your body is too tired to demand anything else. The Tampoo keeper doesn't ask questions. He just sits beside his fire and watches it crackle like it's the only thing left worth understanding. Tomorrow you'll rise before the light and do it again. Another stretch of road, another chain of peaks, more stone beneath your soles, more breath that never quite fills your chest. But tonight, for a few hours, you're still, not safe, not warm, not comfortable, just still. And that in its own quiet way is a kind of miracle. At the Tampoo, they don't ask how far you've come. They don't ask if you're injured or if your animals are limping or if your pack smells like rot. They ask what you're carrying. And when you say, nothing yet, they frown like you failed some invisible test. You're not here to rest. You're here to serve. You arrive on tired legs and leave with more weight than you brought. That is how the system works. A man in a tunic finer than yours, though not by much, tells you where to stand. He doesn't smile. He doesn't explain. He waves toward a stack of wrapped bundles and turns away before you can ask anything. The goods are already organised, already tied, already logged in the quipu hanging on the wall behind him. The quipu keeper barely glances up as your name is spoken. Not your full name, just the village and number tied to you. You're a strand in a long cord. The knots know more about your life than most people ever will. Your llamas are loaded first, rolls of woven cloth dyed deep red, bundles of dried meat wrapped in reed mats, sacks of coca leaves sealed with string and wax. You recognise none of it. You'll never taste it, you'll never wear it, you'll carry it for days across stone and dust, and it will pass from your hands into someone else's, and that someone else will be paid, fed or praised, not you. You are the cord, not the bell. You are the foot, not the drum. They give you a tunic with tighter weave than you've ever worn. Not as a gift, as a requirement. You are moving state goods now, and the state prefers its labourers to be slightly more presentable, even if only for appearances. It itches at your back, clings under your arms, and already smells like the storeroom it came from. But it marks you as a carrier, and that is what matters. Not your name, not your skill, just the tunic and the task. You're warned, quietly but clearly, that if anything goes missing, if a strap breaks, if a bundle is torn, if a package arrives damp instead of dry, it will be recorded. And not just in the air, not just in the mind of a man who forgets. It will be recorded in the quipu, permanently, a knot added, a life tracked. The quipu doesn't care why something went wrong. It cares that it did. You carry that knowledge with more weight than the cargo. The road this time is different. It bends more sharply, rises more steeply. The weather shifts faster, the clouds lower. You pass through gorges where the sun never touches the ground, across ridges where a single gust could knock a man sideways into nothing. Your animals grunt under the new loads, their breath steaming in the morning air. You check their bindings constantly. Not for their sake, for the Empire's. Your own pack includes no food beyond what's required. A few hard rolls of maize flour, a strip of dried tuber, a handful of coca to keep you from slowing down. There's no space for comfort. You walk behind the caravan, watching for signs of strain. One leg dragging, a strap fraying, a shift in weight that means disaster is near. You whisper to the animals sometimes, out of habit, more than hope. They don't listen, but it feels wrong not to speak. You don't pass many people on this stretch. This route is reserved. Not in the way temples are sacred, but in the way taxis are. It's too steep, too narrow, too exposed. Only those on duty take it. And those on duty rarely look up. You pass a group of workers carrying copper tools and bundles of straw. You nod. They don't respond. Their heads are down, eyes fixed on the next step. You recognise their gait. It matches your own. When you pause to rest, it's never for long. 10 breaths at most. You keep the animals close, loop the ropes around your wrist and lean against the nearest rock without fully sitting. Sitting invites stiffness. Stiffness becomes delay. Delay becomes suspicion. The Empire does not reward suspicion with questions. It rewards it with reassignment, or with silence. You begin to dream of what you're carrying, not its contents, but its fate. You imagine the coca delivered to some high official, spread out on a polished tray, the meat simmered in a pot in a noble courtyard, the cloth cut and sewn into a tunic you'll never touch again. You picture people you'll never meet, people who sit while others sweat, smiling while others limp. You picture them and feel nothing. Not anger, not envy, just distance. You're as likely to become one of them as you are to become a bird. A stone comes loose beneath your foot, and you stumble, just once, just enough to make your heart clench. But the load stays on. The strap holds. The llamas continue without noticing. You check the bindings again anyway, not for safety, for fear. Fear of failure. Fear of being the reason a knot is tied in your name that can never be untied. You sleep where you stop, always near the herd. You don't light fires. You don't want attention. You curl against the wall of a narrow ravine, your animals pressed close, your body curled around the hard shape of your pack. You dream of ropes snapping, of llamas vanishing off cliffs, of bundles tumbling end over end, down a slope too steep to chase. You wake with a gasp and check each strap in the dark, fingers trembling. They're all still there, for now. Sometimes you hear the distant echo of a quina flute, someone, somewhere, playing for themselves or for the gods. The sound is haunting, soft where uncertain. You wonder who has enough breath left to waste on beauty. You turn your head, listen until the wind swallows it, and then sleep again, if you can. The next tampoo is still days away, and your legs are giving warnings your mind can't afford to heed. Your knees wobble after each descent. Your shoulders are red and raw, where the straps rub through the wool of your tunic. You don't speak. There's no one to speak to. Even your animals seem quieter than usual, as if they too understand that this trip matters more than the others, that this one carries something heavier than meat and cloth. The trail narrows as you climb. On one side, a rock wall scraped smooth by centuries of passage. On the other, nothing but air and clouds, and the illusion of endless fall. You walk with your body tilted inward, willing your feet to find the flattest places. You don't look down. No one ever looks down. You reach a plateau at dusk, nothing but a flat stretch of gravel and wind. You don't stop because it's a good place. You stop because you have to. Your legs lock when you sit. Your back throbs in time with your pulse. You force down dry maize and let the coca sit in your cheek, the bitterness reminding you to stay awake a little longer. You check each llama again. One strap has loosened. You retie it with slow fingers, teeth clenched, heart beating hard even though the danger passed before you noticed it. You lie beside the herd that night, your head resting on your own pack like a pillow. The smell of the animals is overwhelming. Sweat, dung, old straw, the sour musk of travel. But it's familiar. It's safe in its own way. You press your hand to one of their flanks, feel it rise and fall with sleep. You envy that sleep. You envy the simplicity of it. You close your eyes and think of the cargo, not where it's going, but what it means. Every bundle you carry is worth more than your body. Every package has a purpose, a place in a grand network of mouths to feed and temples to maintain. You're just the thing that moves it. You're the legs beneath the load, the hands that tie the knots, the presence that becomes absence once the cargo is delivered. The Empire doesn't measure you in steps or effort or pain. It measures you in weight moved and distance crossed. And by that measure, you are useful, which is the closest you will ever come to being valued. You drift into sleep with that thought pressed against your ribs. The wind moans through the rocks, and the stars blink down with indifference. You sleep beside your animals, knowing they're worth more than you. You didn't volunteer for this. That's not how the Empire works. You weren't hired, you weren't chosen, you were counted. Your labour is part of the Mita system, an ancient contract you never signed, written in footsteps and exhaustion. Every person in every Ilu owes time to the state. The state doesn't need to ask. It already owns your back, your feet, your breath. Even now, climbing this god-cursed slope, with frost in your throat and straps digging into your collarbone, you're not working. You're paying. You've heard it called a sacred duty, service to the Empire, a privilege. You've heard that phrase from priests in clean tunics who don't carry anything heavier than a bowl of chicha. What you're doing now doesn't feel like privilege. It feels like punishment. Your load hasn't lightened since the last tampoo. The road has narrowed. The incline has steepened. The sun is gone again, tucked behind clouds that don't even have the decency to rain. Your herd moves slower, more reluctant. You understand. If you could spit your bit and vanish into the cliffs, you would. This stretch of road is the worst yet. It zigzags up the side of a mountain that feels personal in its malice. Each turn looks like the last. Each step sounds like the one before. Stone against sandal, breath against wind. joints grinding like old millstones. The air is thinner here, thin enough that every lungful feels like a favour you haven't earned. You chew coca leaves like they're prayers, waiting for the moment the pain in your skull eases and your hand stops shaking. That moment never really comes, just softer pain, softer shaking. There's no end in sight, not even a false one. The road ahead vanishes into cloud. The path behind is the same. You're part of a line of walkers stretched across the Andes like stitches across a wound. You've never seen most of them. You never will. But you know they're there, other herders, other labourers, each one shouldering their small corner of empire so that someone else can sit down and call it divine. The Mita isn't seasonal. It isn't negotiable. It's not a job you do and leave behind. It lives in your bones. You were herding long before this current task. You'll herd again when this load is delivered. The only thing that changes is whose ledgers your suffering is recorded in. The local curaka back home, the regional foreman here. The quipu string doesn't care what the terrain looks like. It just wants knots. It wants proof. You don't know where your village's quota ends and your own body begins. The more you walk, the more it blurs. If your Elu fails to provide enough labour, you're punished together. If you collapse on the trail, they don't just replace you. They double the burden on whoever's left. That's why no one helps you when you stumble. No one reaches out. They're not cruel. They're just calculating. Your animals feel it too. They're part of the tax. Llamas aren't yours, not really. You may feed them, guide them, sleep beside them, but they're state property now. The cloth on their backs will clothe soldiers or priests or tax collectors. The meat they carry will fill a noble's belly or an offering bowl in some distant temple. If one stumbles and breaks a leg, you'll be blamed. If you break something, you'll be replaced. There's no margin for loss, not out here, not with this cargo. Every bundle has been weighed, every load assigned. You're expected to deliver it all on time without error. The idea that a storm might wash out the road, or that your lungs might give out, or that your stomach might turn against you, those are not considered. The Empire doesn't plan for failure. It plans for obedience. And so you keep walking. You pass into cloud cover around midday, though you wouldn't know it by the light. It's always grey now. Grey air, grey skin, grey thoughts. Your tunic is damp at the seams from sweat and mist. Your fingers have gone pale at the tips, stiff and numb. You can't remember the last time you felt warm. You can't remember the last time you felt anything but weary. You start seeing things. At first, it's just movement in the corners of your eyes, shapes that vanish when you turn to look. Then come the sounds, a whisper, a chuckle, a footstep that doesn't match the rhythm of your herd. You know it's the coca, you chew it anyway. The alternative is worse. You'd rather talk to ghosts than listen to your own heartbeat thudding in your ears like a drum announcing retreat. The road crests a narrow ridge, and suddenly you're in open air again, the mountain falling away on both sides. You pause, not for beauty, but because your knees buckle. You drop to a crouch, beside a cairn of rocks marking the trail's midpoint. It's old, older than your village, older maybe, than the Empire itself. The rocks are smooth with age and weather. You lean against them, forehead pressed to stone, hoping the cold will anchor you to your body. You're not alone. A few paces back, another herder has also paused. He doesn't speak. He just meets your eye for a second and nods, like he recognizes the particular shade of exhaustion you're wearing. Then he moves on. That's all there is. No words, just acknowledgement. You're both paying the same tax. You force yourself to rise again. The wind bites as you stand. Your sandals are soaked through. Your fingers tremble as you adjust the rope bindings on the lead llama. One of the animals lets out a low, annoyed grunt. You don't blame it. You grunt back. It's as close to conversation as you get these days. You keep thinking the worst is behind you. It never is. The slope shifts. The trail crumbles in places. You find yourself climbing more with your hands than your feet, tugging at roots and gripping edges so narrow they cut into your palms. Your breath comes in short gasps. Your vision tunnels. You remind yourself, quietly and without conviction, that this is normal, that this is what labour looks like. When the path flattens again, you collapse beside another trail marker, this one chipped and half swallowed by lichen. You don't care what it says. You close your eyes and lie still, cheek pressed to the dirt, ears ringing with silence. You don't know how long you stay there. Minutes, hours. Time moves differently now. It's measured in distance and damage. Eventually your fingers twitch, then your toes. You're not dead. That counts for something. You pull yourself up, not because you've recovered, but because you know stopping too long looks like failure. And failure means punishment, or reassignment, or vanishing into the system entirely, like so many others whose names never made it back to the village. This is Mita, not a job, not a duty, a toll, a grinding away of self in service to something so large it no longer notices your shape. You shoulder the rope again. The herd waits. The road continues. You should have known something was coming. The birds were too quiet that morning. The wind didn't whistle through the ravine like it usually does. It muttered, thick and low, like it was waiting. The sky wasn't dark, it was pale, too pale, with a strange yellow edge to the light that made the stone around you look washed and brittle. But you kept walking. Of course you did. The Empire doesn't build delays into its schedules. The cargo has a destination. Your pain isn't on the manifest. The first warning is a drop in temperature. Not a breeze, not a chill, just an absence. The warmth of your breath vanishes, replaced by a sting that cuts your nostrils and freezes the edge of your lips. Your hands, already stiff, go numb. The coca in your cheek turns to paste. You glance back at the herd, and even the llamas are hunching their necks lower, trying to brace against something they don't yet see. Then the snow begins, not gently, not beautifully. It falls like ground bone, driven sideways by sudden wind. It sticks to your lashes, clumps in your eyebrows, slicks the stone beneath your feet. You can't see more than a few paces ahead, and even those vanish if you blink too long. The path curves along a ridge. One side stone, the other open air. There's no handrail, no rope, no carved guard. Just your balance and luck, both of which feel in short supply today. Your sandals are a joke now. Frayed leather strips soak through and peeling away from the soles. You feel the stone beneath your feet. Every sharp ridge and slick patch a new reason to fall. The wool of your tunic clings to your ribs like wet bark, heavy and useless. You've long since stopped feeling your fingers. The lead rope jerks in your grip as the llamas panic and pull, their feet slipping in the slush. There's no shelter up here. The Tampoo is still a full day's walk away, maybe more if the slope keeps climbing. You scan the rock walls for an overhang, a hollow, a break in the wind, nothing. Just vertical cliff face and drifting white. You can't stop, you know that. Even if you did, what then? You freeze with your animals? The only choice is forward. There's always forward. One of the llamas refuses to move. It plants its feet, neck high, breath snorting through flared nostrils. You shout, not words, just a hoarse, cracked bark, but it doesn't flinch. You jab your stick against the stone beside it, close enough to startle but not hit. It finally steps forward, slipping once, recovering. You tug harder. The line goes taut. The storm keeps screaming. The snow turns to sleep by midday, though the light never changes. It stings more now. Tiny shards cutting across your face, down your collar, into the folds of your tunic. Your skin burns in places, freezes in others. You can't feel your feet anymore. You hope they're still attached. You lose a bundle around a tight corner. One of the smaller llamas leans too far to the side, adjusting under the shifting load, and the strap snaps. The sack tumbles, bounces once, and disappears into the white void below. You stare for a long moment. There's no point shouting. You couldn't hear the fall, even if you wanted to. It's just gone. You check the other straps. You tell yourself that one loss might be forgiven, might be explained, but you don't believe it. Later, how much later you don't know. The ridge narrows again. This time it's barely the width of your body. The path slopes slightly outward. You press your shoulder to the cliff wall, guiding the lead animal carefully. Each step a prayer with no words. You don't breathe. The llama hesitates. You murmur. It takes a step, another. Then the wind shifts, just slightly, enough to make the load on its back tilt. You don't have time to reach it. You don't even shout. You watch as it stumbles sideways, feet scrambling for grip that isn't there. The rope snaps from your hand. The animal topples. You see it twist mid-air, legs kicking, cargo bursting from its back like seeds from a broken gourd. Then it vanishes. You wait for the sound of impact. There isn't one. The snow eats everything. You stand there for a long time, the slack rope still in your fingers, eyes fixed on the place where it fell. There's no way down. Even if you could reach it, the llama is gone, dead or broken or lost. You count the remaining animals. You count the surviving bundles. You count your breaths, just to make sure you're still here. You'll be blamed. Of course you will. There's no question. You were the handler. The loss is on your head. The cargo was state property, sacred in its own way. You'll report it when you reach the next outpost. The foreman will frown. The quipu keeper will tighten a knot. A small one maybe, but it will be tied all the same. The string doesn't care about the wind or the sleet or the edge of the trail. It just remembers. You keep walking, slower now, your head lower. The sleet turns to rain, then back to snow. You're not sure if it's 3 hours or 10 before the ground flattens slightly and you find a dry spot beneath a crooked rock outcrop. You drop your pack, untie the herd, and collapse against the wall. You don't speak. There's no one to speak to. The animals shift around you, breathing heavy, their wool clumped with ice and dirt. You tear a piece of bread from your pouch. It's gone sour from moisture, but you chew it anyway. Your stomach clenches at the taste. You swallow hard. You take a swig from your gourd and wince as the water hits your teeth like knives. You curl into yourself, arms crossed, head down, and wait for your body to stop shivering. It doesn't. That night, you dream of the fall, not the moment itself, but what came after, the stillness, the disappearance. You imagine the llama's body resting somewhere far below, cargo torn open, blood steaming on the snow. You imagine someone finding it days later, another traveller, another herder, and not stopping. Just walking past. That's what you would do. When you wake, your legs ache more than usual. Your shoulders feel raw. You take longer to stand, longer to gather the herd. You check their straps twice, then a third time. You speak more softly to them now. Not kindly, just quieter, as if loudness might tempt the mountain. You start walking again, one fewer animal, one fewer bundle, a small failure in the scheme of things, but not small to you. You don't get to grieve. There's no room for it, no ritual, no rest. You lost something. That's all that matters. The rest is detail. The Empire doesn't ask why, it doesn't even ask how. It just adds another line to your account, another burden to your next assignment, a silent subtraction that no one else sees. You leave behind one of your herd and a part of yourself. Days later, you've made it far enough to leave the snow behind. The Tampoo comes into view just as the sun dips behind the ridge, painting the stones gold for a moment, before darkness reclaims everything. You're not even relieved. Tampoo or not, there's no real rest, just a flatter surface to sleep on, and a pot of food that might be warm if you're lucky. Still, it's shelter of a kind, and after the storm, you'd settle for worse. The animals grunt as you guide them toward the pen, feet scraping over worn flagstones. You count them again, still one short. You've stopped hoping it was a mistake. You know exactly what's missing, and the loss hums in your chest like a bruise you keep pressing. The Tampoo keeper greets you with a grunt. No questions, no welcome, just a nod and a half-filled bowl of stew that smells like boiled stone and overcooked tuber. You eat with your back to the wall, legs stretched out, sandals drying near the fire. Your tunic still clings to your spine with the sweat from the last climb. You've stopped noticing the smell. That's how you know you've been on the road too long. Your arms are scratched, your knees sore, and there's a tick lodged behind your ear you can't reach. You chew slowly and stare at the flames, hoping they'll hypnotize you into forgetting your name. Then you hear it. A whistle, not sharp, not aggressive, but practiced. Ritual. A Tampoo keeper's signal. You look up in time to see him emerge from the mist, breathless, but not wheezing, his legs still pumping as he slows from a run. The chaski. He's younger than you, maybe by only a few years, but the difference is obvious. His body hasn't been softened by cold nights or hard landings. His feet are quick, sure, calloused with purpose, not with punishment. His tunic is tighter woven, marked with feathers and coloured thread. Not luxurious, but recognisable. He's one of them. A messenger. A carrier of words, not weight. The Tampoo keeper greets him with something that almost resembles warmth. Not quite a smile, but the corners of his mouth twitch. The chaski nods, hands over a small packet wrapped in cloth. Maybe a message, maybe something ceremonial. You wouldn't know. You're not part of that system. The keeper takes it reverently and tucks it away like it's worth more than your entire herd. You shift where you sit, suddenly aware of the crusted grime on your sleeves, the dried blood around your cuticles, the animal stench clinging to your every breath. The chaski doesn't look directly at you. He doesn't have to. The glance is enough. He sees you, registers your presence, and moves on. You know his kind. You've passed them on the road before, never close enough to talk, always just flashes of movement between rocks. They travel in relays, never alone for long, always fresh legs waiting ahead. They don't carry packs or food. They don't sleep in ditches or eat cold maize with chipped teeth. They run, they deliver, and then they disappear into the next curve of the world, celebrated in stories as swift-footed lifelines of empire. You, on the other hand, leave behind nothing but llama tracks and manure. You watch as he sits beside the fire, his bowl filled before he asks. He drinks water that hasn't been boiled down to bitterness. He speaks briefly, confidently, not loudly. Chaski are trained not to draw attention, but with assurance. He belongs here. He is part of the Empire's bloodstream. You're a clot that moves slowly through its limbs. You don't resent him. That would require energy. What you feel is more like distance. He exists in a different category, a different orbit. You both serve the same empire, walk the same roads, breathe the same thin air. But he is remembered. His path is woven into story. Yours is measured in the weight of what you didn't drop. You shift your back against the wall, bones grinding against stone, and watch his hands, clean, uncracked, fingernails still intact. He gestures while he talks. Not with arrogance, just fluidity. His words seem to matter. People listen when he speaks. You've forgotten what that feels like. Later, as the fire dies down and the mist creeps in again, you see him preparing to leave. He doesn't sleep here. Of course he doesn't. There's another relay station a few miles ahead, and he means to reach it before moonrise. That's how it works. Momentum is sacred. He stands, stretches, ties his sandals with quick fingers, and nods at the Tampoo keeper, who wishes him luck. You think of your own journey, the endless slope, the lost cargo, the dead weight in your legs. You'll be here another night, maybe two. You need to resecure the loads. One of the llamas is limping. Your sandals are splitting again. You're not sure you'll have time to rest before you're expected to keep moving. The next Tampoo isn't close. The chaski steps into the fog. His silhouette flickers for a moment in the firelight. Tall, upright, still balanced on the balls of his feet, like he's never quite stopped running. And then he vanishes. No farewell, no backward glance. You sit there a while longer, staring at the place where he disappeared. You don't feel jealous, just heavier, slower, like someone watching water flow while their own body sinks in mud. You wonder what it must be like to move that quickly and still be fed, to be seen, to be trusted with words instead of wool. You try to remember the last time someone handed you something fragile, something meant to be heard, not weighed. Nothing comes. Your animals shift behind you, their feet scuffing the Tampoo floor, breath rising in slow, hot clouds. You know their weight. You know their habits. You know how they grunt before they spit and how they stomp when the load pinches wrong. You know 100 things the chasky never will. But no one writes songs about that. You settle back into your corner, tunic still damp, stomach still half empty. You close your eyes for a moment, not to sleep, but just to stop seeing. The fire crackles. Somewhere outside, a bird calls and goes quiet again. Your body aches, not just from use, but from being forgotten. The chasky is already halfway to the next post. Someone will greet him there, offer food, ask for news, praise his speed. You'll leave at dawn with half-frozen feet and a swollen toe you haven't checked in 2 days. You'll carry weight. You'll keep walking. He delivers names. You are the reason names arrive at all. But in the stories, only one of you matters. You don't expect to be summoned. That's not usually how it works. Most of the time, you show up, you unload, you sleep near your animals, and you leave before your name ever needs saying. But not this time. At the Tampoo, a boy with a reed-pitched voice and 2 clean fingernails approaches with a message. You're wanted at the checkpoint. Now. No reason given, no tone of urgency, just an order that pretends to be a request. You ask no questions. That would imply you expect answers. You hand off the herd to the Tampoo keeper, who shrugs as if to say, "It's not my business." It never is. You follow the boy through a narrow doorway and up a winding set of stone steps that weren't made for tired legs. Each riser feels like a test. Each corner hides a silence that waits to be broken. At the top, there's a small courtyard, flat, cold, open to the sky. A table stands under a cloth awning, weighed down by clay jars, a stack of papers you're not allowed to touch, and the familiar twist of quipu cords draped like snakes across a carved wooden rod. Behind the table stands a man you've never seen but recognise anyway, the overseer. He's not dressed extravagantly. That's not the point. His tunic is clean, perfectly dyed, tight at the seams. His sandals are new. His posture is effortless. He doesn't look strong, but strength is never what hurts the most. He's flanked by 2 men who don't speak and don't blink. Their arms crossed, their eyes on you like you've already disappointed them. The overseer smiles. That's the part that makes your stomach tighten. You know better than to trust a man who smiles before you've spoken. He waves his hand like he's welcoming an old friend, though you've never met. You bow your head, not too low, not too long, and wait. He starts by asking how your journey's been, not because he wants to know, but because it gives him something to interrupt. You barely get out a few words before he cuts in, nodding sagely, as if your silence is proof of something he suspected. He compliments your posture, says it's good to see young men upright these days. The 2 men beside him say nothing, but you catch one of them smirking. Then comes the criticism. Not loud, not cruel, just persistent. Your route was inefficient, he says. You took the higher pass when the lower trail would have saved a day. You know that trail was blocked by rockfall, but explaining that would sound like an excuse. You stay silent. He notes that one of your animals was listed in the manifest, but not in your current tally. You nod once. He nods back slowly, like a teacher whose student has just confessed to breathing improperly. He taps the quipu with 1 finger. Not aggressively, just enough to draw your eye to it. He doesn't need to threaten. The string will do it for him. A knot here, a colour-coded shift there, and your entire reputation changes in an instant. You don't know how to read it, not fully. That's the game. You're supposed to carry the consequences without understanding the code that defines them. Then he says the word you were dreading. Discipline. Not a command, not a punishment, a suggestion. A possibility floating in the air, like a smell you can't name but already fear. He says it while smiling, like he's offering you a cup of something warm. Discipline, he says, is how the Empire stays strong. Discipline keeps the roads running. Discipline protects you from yourself. You nod, it's the only answer. He gestures to the man beside him, the one with the smirk. The man steps forward, uncoils a short reed baton from his belt, and taps it once against his palm. He doesn't ask where you want it. You hold out your arm. It's expected, you've done this before. The cut is shallow, more sting than wound, but it's meant to bleed. It needs to leave a mark, something you'll feel every time you reach to tie a strap or scratch at your tunic. You don't flinch. You've learned that flinching only invites repetition. The man nods, steps back. The overseer thanks you for your cooperation, like you've just completed a helpful chore. He returns to the quipu and begins tying something new. He dismisses you with a wave. You bow again. Not too low, not too long. On the way back down, the boy who brought you up won't meet your eyes. He kicks at loose stones and hums to himself, like he wasn't there at all. You don't speak. What would you say? That you were corrected? That the Empire reminded you of your place? That a smile can be as sharp as obsidian? Back at the Tampoo, your herd has been rearranged. 2 of the stronger animals are gone. No explanation. The keeper shrugs when you ask. Maybe they were reassigned. Maybe they were compensation for your mistake. Maybe the overseer just wanted them. You count the remaining ones twice to be sure you didn't lose more than that. You feel the loss like a dislocated joint. Something still attached but wrong. Your ration pouch has been adjusted too. Less bread, more root, no coca. That part isn't an accident. You're being reminded. Your strength is a resource the Empire owns. And rationing isn't just about food. It's about control. You sit near the pen as night falls, chewing a piece of dry tuber until your jaw aches. The fire in the Tampoo centre is already dying. No one speaks to you. A few other travellers come and go. An older woman with a crooked back. 2 boys carrying clay jars wrapped in twine. You don't belong to their stories. You're just a figure in the background, marked and moving. Your arm throbs. You press a cloth to the wound, but the cloth is already dirty. It doesn't matter. Infection is a worry for people who live long enough to worry. You look up at the stars, cold and indifferent. Somewhere above the clouds, Inti watches. Or doesn't. Maybe he's too busy warming the stone walls of Cusco to bother with you. Maybe his fire is only meant for the men who sit at tables and smile while others bleed. You think of the overseer's face, that calm, pleasant mask, the way he spoke to you like you mattered just enough to correct. Not enough to listen to. Not enough to spare. You shift closer to your pack, shoulder against the llama closest to you. It shifts but doesn't move away. Its breathing is slow, heavy, reliable. You fall asleep like that. Your back aching, your arm burning, your stomach half empty. You're lighter now. Fewer animals, less food, a little blood left behind in a basin you weren't allowed to see. Tomorrow you'll walk again, but tonight the cut still stings, and so does the smile. One day you're climbing again, because of course you are. The road doesn't believe in mercy. It doesn't believe in gradients either. It believes in vertical stone and loose gravel and switchbacks so narrow they feel like tricks. The path now hugs the side of a cliff, carved out of rock by hands you'll never meet, worn smooth by centuries of feet like yours. No railing, no rope, just stone and the suggestion of a trail. The llamas handle it better than you. They always do. Their legs are steadier, their bodies better suited to this world of tilted earth and thin air. You, on the other hand, feel every crack in your knees, every tremor in your calves. You place each foot with care now, not out of caution, but because you've seen what happens when you don't. It starts with a stone, no bigger than a fist. You step, it shifts, and the world moves without your permission. Your leg slips sideways, your sandal skids over wet lichen, and your balance vanishes. For a moment, just one breathless, weightless moment, you're falling. But your body doesn't want to die, not yet. Your knee slams into the path. Your hand grabs a branch, a root, a rock, something sharp enough to split your palm. You stop just short of the edge, breath shallow, heart hammering in your ears like a war drum. One of the llamas bleats behind you, unimpressed. You lie there, half off the path, arms shaking, wondering how much longer you can keep doing this. No one saw, or if they did, no one said anything. The mountain doesn't notice. The Empire certainly doesn't. You might have fallen. You might have vanished into a crevice so deep your bones would never be found. A bird might have watched it happen. A gust of wind might have carried your last breath down the valley. But nothing would have stopped. Not the road, not the cargo, not the story. You pull yourself up slowly, testing your leg. The knee works barely. The cut on your palm leaks steadily. A line of red against your skin. You wrap it in a rag, tighten the knot with your teeth, and keep going. Not because you've recovered, not because you're brave, but because there is no one to catch you if you stop. The next hour is a blur. You don't remember the landscape. You don't remember the sound of the herd's feet or the rhythm of your breath. All you remember is the feeling, like the mountain is watching now, curious to see what else it can take. Your shoulders are hunched, your gait is uneven. You feel like a cracked pot, rattling but still holding just enough to be considered useful. You stop at a resting ledge just wide enough for two bodies and a bundle of cargo. The wind howls around the bend, cold and sharp and smelling of stone. You don't sit. You lean. Sitting would mean stiffening. Stiffening would mean staying. And you have to move. There's a boy a few paces behind you, young, younger than you were when you started, probably sent from a far-off village that ran out of old men and middle-aged uncles to sacrifice. His eyes are too big, his sandals too thin, and his load far too heavy. He hasn't spoken since you passed him yesterday. You thought he might collapse then. You were almost right. You glance back as he stumbles on the slope, arms pinwheeling for balance. You don't move. You don't call out. You don't reach. You watch. His foot slides, his pack tips. He tries to correct, but he's too slow. Too tired, too small. He hits the ground hard, chest first, and the strap snaps. The pack rolls once, then slips over the edge. He scrambles after it. Too fast, too desperate. You open your mouth not to warn him, but to say something. Nothing comes out. His hands miss the edge. His body doesn't. It's not dramatic. It's not even loud. Just a quick thud, a shift of air, and then nothing. The pack is gone. The boy is gone. The ledge is empty again. You stare at the spot for a while. The wind erases the footprints quickly. A few pebbles slide after him, kicked loose by his fall. You think about walking to the edge. You don't. You already know what's down there. Someone else behind you coughs, keeps walking. They didn't stop. You shouldn't have either. You adjust your strap and turn forward again. Your herd is still moving. One of them pauses to sniff at a patch of grass growing from a crack in the stone. You tap your stick against the ground. It snorts and moves on. You don't know his name. The boy. You didn't ask. No one told you. You don't know where he was from, or what he was carrying, or who might be waiting for him to return. Probably no one. Probably he was like you, assigned to a task, a route, a burden, and forgotten the moment he was out of sight. You'll report the missing cargo at the next Tampoo. You won't report the boy. There's no space for that on the Kipu. Only numbers, only bundles, only deadlines. Your knees ache more now. Your wrist throbs. Your fingers are stiff, and your eyes sting from the wind. But you keep walking, because the road doesn't care what you've seen. It doesn't pause for grief. It doesn't bend for mourning. You think for a moment about how easy it is to vanish. Just one mistake, one misstep, and you're gone, no louder than a whisper. The Empire doesn't send search parties. It sends replacements. The herd still needs to move. The load still needs to arrive. The string still needs its knot. You walk on, past the place where he fell, past the ledge where you almost joined him, past the silence that presses at the edge of your thoughts, like cold hands on the back of your neck. You don't think about him again, not because you're callous, not because you've forgotten, but because thinking doesn't change the weight on your shoulders or the number of steps left to take. You were almost him. He is now nothing. And you're still walking. The air smells different when you reach the plateau. Not cleaner, nothing smells clean at this altitude, but more solemn, as though even the dust knows to settle quietly. There are no birds, no rustling wind through grass, no sound of feet clattering against stone. Just the still hush of expectation. You know this place, not by name but by presence, a sacred site. You arrive just after sunrise. The path has narrowed again, steep and cracked, but it flattens here in a strange kind of mercy. Stone terraces step down the mountainside like the teeth of a sleeping god. A few low walls mark the edges, built from cut stone that fits so well together you'd think it had grown that way. The sunlight crawls up the eastern ridge, inching toward a stone platform at the centre of the space. That's where the offerings go. Not just cargo now, tribute. You guide the herd to the outer edge, where a tampoo-like shelter provides shade for the animals. There are others here already, other herders, other carriers. No one speaks. A few meet your eye, but most don't. You all know what this is. You're not guests, you're not worshippers, you're delivery. The bundles are unloaded in silence. One by one, you untie the straps, lower the cargo to the stone with care, and step back. Bright-dyed textiles wrapped in oilcloth, crates of dried maize, pottery sealed with wax, and two young llamas bound loosely at the legs, their eyes wide and confused. They don't know what's coming. You do. You were told not to look inside the packages, so you don't. Not out of fear, out of practice. Curiosity gets you nowhere. You place each bundle on the marked stone as instructed, certain items on the higher slab, others on the lower. You don't ask why. You've carried so many offerings over the years, and never once have you been told what any of them meant. You finish early. You always do. Your knots are clean, your pace steady. The others still wrestle with straps, murmur curses under their breath, struggle to settle their animals. You take the time to check your own herd, tighten the ropes, test the feet, brush a patch of burrs from one flank. You work with your hands because your mind is not welcome here. A figure arrives from the far path, not a runner, not a soldier, a priest, you know from the robe. Dark red, edged in golden thread, with a sun disk stitched across the chest. He walks like someone who expects the ground to remain still beneath him. His face is painted with a thin layer of ash. Not much, just enough to say he matters more than you do. He does not speak to you. He does not look at you. He walks past as though you're part of the stone itself. You don't take offence. You don't feel anything. That part of you wore away years ago. An attendant, someone younger, cleaner, approaches and informs you that your task is complete. You're dismissed, not thanked, not blessed, just done. You nod, not because you agree, but because what else is there? You are a shadow in their temple, and shadows don't linger. You gather your things, what little there are, your pack, your stick, your pouch with the crumbs of yesterday's bread. You guide the llamas to the edge of the clearing, away from the platform, away from the coming ritual. You're not meant to see it. Not because it's secret, but because it's not for you. You glance back once, just once. The priest stands beside the platform, arms raised to the sun, face tilted toward the sky. The bundles are still untouched, still wrapped, still silent. You won't see them opened. You won't see the young llamas led forward. You won't hear the prayers or the chants or the knife. You know what will happen. But knowing is not the same as being allowed to witness. You start the descent. The slope is steep but familiar. You've walked it before. It winds down the far side of the plateau, narrow and choked with dust. You guide the herd slowly, carefully. The animals are jumpy today. Maybe they feel the tension. Maybe they smelled the blood before it was spilled. You walk in silence. The kind that follows ceremony. The kind that feels like closing a door you were never invited to pass through. You've delivered the sacred, and now you're leaving it behind. That's your role. That's always been your role. You don't pray. You don't receive blessings. You don't get to ask why. You remember once, years ago, asking your father why you weren't allowed to stay. He laughed. Not cruelly, just dry, flat, tired. We carry the gods, he said. We don't speak to them. That was all he ever said about it. That was all he needed to say. The sun climbs higher as you descend, warming the back of your neck. Your tunic sticks to your shoulders. The rock underfoot radiates heat. Your throat tightens. You chew the last of your coca leaves, even though they've lost their bite. It's not for pain now. It's for rhythm. You chew, you walk, you breathe. That's what you do. You reach a bend in the trail where you can still see the upper platform. Just barely. Through a break in the ridge, the priest is a speck now, moving slowly, deliberately. You think you see the shine of the knife. You think you hear something, a cry maybe, but it could just be wind, or memory, or nothing. You pause, just for a breath, then you keep walking. No one will ask if you were there. No one will ask how the offering went. The only thing that matters is that the bundles arrived, that the count was correct, that the animals were young, unblemished and breathing. You won't be part of the story they tell about today. When they speak of the sun god and the temple and the ritual, your name won't appear. There will be no mention of the cracked sandals or the frayed ropes or the hands that carried everything up the slope in the first place. The cloth you delivered may be burned, the animals may be bled, the prayers may rise in smoke, and all of it will be sacred, but not you. You're already gone down the trail, forgotten before the first chant echoed through the stones. You return the same way you left, on sore feet under a colourless sky, with nothing in your pack but a worn strip of cloth and half a heel of dried bread you've stopped bothering to chew. Your body is lighter, but not from rest. Just erosion, the kind that doesn't show all at once. You don't think about the miles ahead. You don't think about anything at all. The trail doesn't feel familiar, not really. You've walked it before, once, maybe twice, but it shifts when you're tired. You recognise the shape of a tree, the bend of a ridge, only to realise you've imagined the memory. Everything begins to blur at this point. Direction, distance, days. You walk because the Empire expects it, and because your legs still obey, even if you no longer understand the orders. No one is waiting for you at the next Tampoo. You didn't expect them to be. You don't pause long, just enough to refill your gourd and pull a splinter from your toe. You try not to think about how far you are from your village, or whether you're headed toward it at all. You suspect you passed it a day ago, maybe more, or maybe it's still ahead, folded behind the next ridge. It doesn't matter. The road stretches on either way. You're not expected anywhere specific. You haven't been for some time. You've become one of those figures other travellers pass without asking questions. Just a man and his llamas, neither old nor young, too dusty to notice, too quiet to greet. You used to wonder where those men were going. Now you know, nowhere in particular. Just forward. Your herd is smaller now. A few animals were reassigned. A few simply disappeared. One to a fall, another to illness, and one maybe to a puma, though you never saw the tracks. The ones that remain are lean and steady. You move together without speaking, without ceremony. They know the path. They don't need you to guide them, just to keep moving behind them, just to not stop. The Empire still needs cargo moved, salt, dried meat, woven cloth, tribute bundles, tools for Mita projects you'll never see completed. There will always be work for your feet, if not for your name. You're a known quantity, if not a memorable one. Reliable, durable, replaceable. You pass through a village at dusk, not yours. They all blur now. Stone houses, low walls, children watching from doorways, the smell of something cooking that isn't meant for you. You stop at the edge of the path, raise a hand and gesture toward the pen. No one argues. You tie the animals, roll up in your cloak, and sleep beside a pile of straw without being told yes or no. In the morning, you leave before the sun clears the ridgeline. You don't speak. You haven't in days, maybe weeks. There's nothing to say that hasn't already been answered by the wind. When you do hear voices, they're almost always ahead of you, fading into the fog before you catch up. You don't try. You know what they're carrying. You know what they'll become. Sometimes as you walk, you wonder how many roads there are. You've heard the old stories, how they stretch across the spine of the world, from the edge of the sea to the frozen peaks, connecting every corner of the empire in a perfect weave. You think that might be true, and if it is, you also know one other thing. They'll never all be walked by the same feet. But some feet, yours perhaps, will try. You think now and then about stopping, about setting down your pack and finding a village small enough to forget you. Digging in the soil, trading cloth for potatoes, building something that doesn't move, but the thought never lasts long. The Empire knows where you are. It will call again. Not with a messenger, not with a scroll, just with the quiet pressure of expectation, of obligation. And anyway, you wouldn't know what to do with stillness. The movement is part of you now. You've been walking for so long, you're not sure what else your body remembers how to do. The sun rises and falls, the landscape changes, the work doesn't. You deliver bundles to checkpoints. You guide your herd across bridges that fray a little more each year. You sleep in pens, tampus, lean-tos, goat sheds, cave mouths. You chew coca when your breath shortens. You tie your sandal with whatever string you can find. You walk. The quipu records your work, sometimes, or it records your route, your loads, your losses, but it doesn't remember you. Not by name, not by face. You're a knot in someone else's pattern, counted once, then left behind. You served the Empire and you still do, but no one's keeping track of the person anymore, just the motion. You think of the priest once, arms raised before the sun. You think of the chaski sprinting into the fog, his legs fresh and sandaled, his hair still oiled. You think of the boy who slipped and fell without a name. You think of the overseer's soft voice as he told you discipline was a gift. And you think of your father's hands, thick, cracked, dark with dirt, tying a rope to a llama's chest and pressing the stick into your own smaller palm. This is not a story. This is a pattern, a cycle. The road was always there. You were always going to walk it. You crest another ridge and see the next path ahead, twisting, sloping, dipping down into a stretch of fog so thick it might be water. You adjust your pack, shift your shoulders, tap your stick twice against the stone. One of the llamas grunts in reply. That's all the conversation you need. The air smells of salt, or dust, or rain. You don't know which. You don't stop to find out. You walk. That brings us to the end of tonight's quiet, wind-bitten journey. If you're still awake, thank you for walking alongside someone the Empire never praised, never thanked, and never really needed, except to carry weight. If you'd like early access to more of these slow, bleak descents into the lives history paved over, ad-free audio of the episodes, or just want to support the show, you'll find a link to the Patreon in the description. Feel free to like, subscribe, or leave a comment with other forgotten corners of history you'd like to see covered. If you're listening on a podcast app, a rating or review helps others find their way to these stories. And special thanks to the supporters who make this show possible, including our chroniclers, Andrew S. and Amanda Lamke. Sleep well.